Hello everybody and welcome. My name's, for those of you who don't know me, I think most of you do, I'm Juan Cruz, I'm the Dean of the School of Fine Art, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you to this, the first of our Visual Cultures lecture series for 2015-16. The Visual Culture Lecture Series is a public lecture programme that we have in the School of Fine Art at the Royal College, and through it we try and, as well as presenting the work of what we consider to be some of the most interesting practitioners, theorists, thinkers working today, we also try through the combinations that we engender to generate some new knowledge, some new understanding around the themes that we're trying to address. Last year, our Visual Culture Lecture Series took the theme of contemporaneity, and we had a number of people who talked about this kind of ungraspable concept from an artistic perspective, a sociological perspective, and also a theoretical perspective. And this year, our series is titled Rise Up and Envision. And what we're trying to do is to take some of the ideas that we generated last year around what the contemporary might be, but to try to think about how that might apply to things beyond our immediate sphere of art and the art world. And we've structured the series in that way. This year, differently to last year, we're trying to set up combinations of people who kind of might speak to each other, and we hope might kind of generate some new ideas through that dialogue. So really, we're trying to create a platform for knowledge exchange through these public talks. One of the things that I suppose particularly concerns us in these kind of interesting economic and political times is how we progress. It seems likely that certainly in the next 5 years, public funding will continue to diminish for the arts, for education. And so the idea of constantly reinventing things maybe is a bit difficult to think of realistically. And I think one of the things that maybe is a challenge for us is how we begin to recycle the things that we do, how we begin to find ways of making, particularly our institutions, work a bit more effectively for us. And these are some of the things that we want to explore through this series. So how do we begin to do things in a slightly different way, or conceive of things in a different way? We have a number of interesting talks coming up, and maybe rather than go through them, I'd encourage you to keep abreast of our website and to keep on looking out for some of our Facebook and social media feeds. We do communicate quite effectively about what's coming up. But just briefly, in November, Nobru Hidanu and Suhail Malik will be speaking around an idea of economics in art. On the 19th of January, we have Richard Sennett and Jonas Stahl speaking about certain ideas of inhabitation and social perspectives to do with place, and various other speakers later in the year. It's a great pleasure today to welcome our speakers, Castillo Corrales and also Bar Vulcan, who've been providing us with tea, coffee in the beginning of the lecture, and will continue when the lecture is finished with some harder stuff, some of the best vodka, imaginable, and some music also. So I hope you'll come to our lectures. It's a real pleasure to see you here, and I'd like to hand over now to my colleague Anne Defoe, who will introduce our speakers for tonight. And I just want to thank Anne as well for making this possible. We think collectively as a school about the kind of people, the kind of speakers that we want to invite, and so in a sense it's a kind of co-authored effort. But one thing is having ideas about who we want to come here. Another thing is actually making it happen and inspiring people to come, getting into their diaries, into their calendars, and actually fixing them to times. And Anne's been extraordinary in contributing very significantly to the curation of these events, but also to actually getting you all here. So thank you very much, Anne.
Hi everyone. I'm just going to introduce really briefly our guest tonight. So AIR will start to talk about their Freeze project, but also another exhibition that they have on at the moment. And they are a collective that formerly is known as AIRBNB Pavilion. They are based in London, and their work focuses on contemporary forms of domesticity. It was founded by Fabrizio Ballabio, Alessandro Bava, Ortega, Govela, and Octave Perrault. The collective was first formed on the occasion of an exhibition during the opening days of the 14th Architecture Biennale in Venice. And it took place in an apartment rented on Airbnb. And they changed recently their name in 2015 for AIR, following legal pressure. AIR tackles the evolution of the contemporary home and its transformations from the fortress of the family to commodity traded online with performances, site-specific installations, events, and writing. It focuses on the relationship between objects and their environments and the effect of the internet on the city. So they will tell you more. And also we have tonight Castillo Corrales, and to represent this non-profit organization, we have Benjamin tonight with us. It's run on voluntary basis by a group of artists, curators, writers, and graphic designers. And since its start in 2007, it has been conceived as a self-sustainable project, as a new type of art space in Paris, which provides artists, professionals, and audiences with an intimate and informal environment conducive to experimentation, discussions, and learning. Castillo Corrales founded also the bookstore called Section 7 Books and the publishing house Paraguay Press to consider the space of the book as an extension of artistic, critical, and curatorial thinking. And I want to thank you also, Bar Vulcan, who have been running for about 8 years now as a collective as well, and our nomadic platform, very open to discussions and to the future and positive act. So thank you very much, and without any more words, please welcome AIR.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming tonight. The title of our short presentation tonight is Mattresses. We titled this presentation Mattresses because the mattress is somehow an object that our work keeps coming back to. So we're going to talk about two projects that we have completed recently. This one is a project we did for, it's one of the Frieze projects, so it's on view now at Frieze London, and the other one is a show at Project Native Informant, a gallery in Mayfair. So this project was titled, the project at Frieze was titled Comfort Zone, and it's actually, a series of 6 bedrooms. As you can see, that we constructed in a sequence, in an enfilade. So we wanted with this, we wanted to construct an illusion, a 3-dimensional illusion, and in a way, the title was Comfort Zone because we wanted to kind of explore almost the dark side of comfort. We've been, our work has been kind of focusing on domesticity for the past year. And comfort is something that we kind of kept looking at because we saw that the transformations of the home in, let's say, in the so-called post-internet city, in a way connect what is the domestic environment to the space of the office. And in a way relaxing and chilling or comfort to core as an idea, it's something that is related to production more and more rather than to, let's say, relaxing or creative time. And so we wanted to bring we always try to respond to the context of our projects in a way. And so because of course the fair, the context we were in is a commercial fair, it's a commercial art fair. So in a way, it's a very atypical context to realize, let's say, an art project. So in a way, we wanted to look at the fair aspect of the art fair and look at it as a place of work, as a place of labor. So in a way, a lot of the work carried out at the fair actually happens. It's actually in a way like affective labor, or it's a labor that's performed via human interaction, or and effectively it happens more in the lounges than actually at the booths where the art is actually displayed. So we started from that idea, and we kind of wanted to tackle that aspect and introduce the space within the fair, which actually uses the tropes of the domestic decoration to construct this environment that is actually just a lounge, essentially. So we wanted to use the tropes of the interior decoration, including like colors, like the pastel colors of the walls, and also the most essential archetype of the home, which is a bed. We're very interested, we're kind of almost obsessed with the bed and mattresses in a way, because we see them as a kind of, as an archetype that is very layered and kind of significant into, and highlights the interaction between production and reproduction, of course. So in a way, we had these 6 mattresses that were kind of customized with like duvets and prints on the mattresses.
We were kind of also interested in the fact that kind of in the context, or in an art context, you usually read a bedroom as something that kind of describes an autobiography or the artist behind it, and we kind of were interested in presenting the bedroom as something that doesn't actually, let's say, represent the artist behind it, but becomes something more generic. So this kind of construction of the bedroom starts becoming basically open for the people to, let's say, read into it rather than actually you prescribing what you should be reading for it. So somehow the images that basically are printed on the mattresses are appropriated from sharing economy websites that basically, they're called hero images, and they basically represent the community they're trying to build. Because sharing economy websites, they don't actually, let's say, own anything. The only thing that they do is actually create a community that people prescribe to. It's almost like an ideology, like a cult. So these images represent that, let's say, community, but also they're generic in their way. So somehow this kind of genericness of the mattress starts also being represented through the images that are printed on them. And then at the same time, the embroidery that the duvet cover has on it comes from all these kind of signs that we were finding on the street. You know how you always see mattresses laying on the streets? But it was funny because like these signs suddenly start saying or prescribing a certain kind of persona to the bed itself. Like, I don't fit in anywhere, or like, people fell in love with me. So suddenly the bed starts becoming this person somehow, and doesn't start describing a person behind it.
It's almost the duvets are almost linking to these mattresses found in the streets as a kind of pre-internet meme, in a way. But I mean, going back to the bed as an archetype, I think we're interested in that relation, like within the fair, of how like, by putting very simple and basic domestic features, how this so-called lounge would perform in the context of the fair. And actually, I mean, then, now we're talking a posteriori, so it's maybe like we also looking back at the project, because in a way we designed the environment, and also we designed almost an atmosphere, but we also, let's say, had to test how this would work in a way, because in a way, we designed the space to appear as familiar as possible. So like we like really forced almost like the lowest common denominator of like a comfortable space, which is like, the most comfortable mattress, the most soothing colors that actually are good for concentrating or for creative labor and so on. But we actually weren't. It was uncertain how this was gonna work. If people were gonna like reject this kind of almost forceful. I mean, we thought it was gonna be a very forceful space, because in a way it's like it's almost controlling in the way that it's designed. But actually, it's interesting the outcome of it, because in a way. People didn't seem to read that, or most people didn't seem to read that, and they actually embraced the idea of using the space for comfort, even though, because we thought that, there was a parallel between the space where the project, and like the lounges in corporate offices, and those are for us very coercitive spaces. In a way, they are built like in Facebook offices or Airbnb offices or all these kind of like mostly tech startups. All these spaces are kind of the so-called breakout spaces. They're designed to increase the productivity of the worker, and in a way like to extract more labor from workers even during moments of relax. So in a way that we wanted to draw a parallel with that space within the fair. And so we were thinking that people were going to react to that in a almost negative way, and almost like feeling, almost like having a repulsive reaction to that, but actually almost the opposite happened. So in a way, I think a posteriori we can say that, I mean, if you want to look at that as almost like an experiment, I think the outcome of it was also interesting.
It's weird. I think the genericness kind of plays in a favor here, because every time you're going to share a bed with someone, it's always that you don't know. It's always really awkward, because it's such like, you always read at such an intimate like space. It's like the space where the family has created all of these kind of things. But then at the same time, once you present us as something generic with this kind of, that's also why the graffiti plays such a kind of important aspect in the project, because it starts bringing this kind of publicness. Sorry?
Describe the graffiti.
Well, yeah, so the graffiti basically comes from you can help me out with the graffiti.
Because the wall of the, I mean, actually I wanted to perhaps approach it from a different angle by saying that actually one of the focus of everything we've been doing has been the relationship between the home and technology. But there is often an idea that actually technology is always this kind of electronic screen, high definition thing. But actually we try to approach the bed, the bedroom, even all the elements of the house or as technologies in themselves. And for example, the bed, there's all this discussion about the smart home that I've been basically developing in the last 10 years, and the smart city, like this whole, like this city infused with technologies that optimize everything. And it's often illustrated in a way that's like based on smartphones, on this kind of, this very specific aesthetic. But the way we approach it is that the bed, as soon as you're on your bed with a smartphone, basically the whole bed and the whole bedroom becomes smart. You don't need to have like technology embedded in it to actually turn it. So there's an interesting aspect there. And where I was gonna go to is that this idea of technology on the home is that we always see that the home is infiltrated by all these technologies in a kind of dangerous way. Like it breaks privacy, it opens up. You have like these cameras, this this thing that observe you and you don't want to, it collects data. And here I think, I lost my train of thought now. But
well, I think like the design of the space actually is what kind of brings that back in, because we were working with this typology, which is kind of you wanted to say something now.
Now, when we go back to say that actually we're also interested in this place to go back to Alessandro's words on the offices, like how basically you always see like how the home is becoming a productive space, but here we're more interested in how the home was appearing within productive spaces, within the office. And I think that's also an interesting way to kind of reframe the discussion about technology and the home in a bit more complex way.
Yeah, I think there was a parallel between, I think, the technology that we embedded in these chandeliers. Basically, we inserted the smart light bulbs in this kind of seemingly inoffensive looking chandeliers, and these light bulbs were connected were connected to the Wi-Fi, and they were gathering data from the fair, and the light would respond to this data that was being collected, let's say, live. So in a way, I think there was a parallel between this paradigm of like the anxiety for security and data being collected, also even in the most private moments of life, like being at home or being in bed. There was a parallel between that and like the psychosis of around that surrounds privacy and how technology enters the home, and another form of technology, which is the one, let's say, the almost pre-technological or like paleo-technological technology of the enfilade, which is basically like an architectural typology that used to be employed to regulate privacy in the domestic space. Typically in the Baroque palaces, the enfilade would basically regulate privacy within the palace via, let's say, regulating the interactions of the owner of the house and guests. So in a way, I mean, I'm sure like everyone at some point has been to some kind of palace or palace,
shotgun house,
or like also palace turned museum, because also the interesting thing is that a lot of palaces that used to display this kind of technology have been turned into museums. So the enfilade basically was used to, so the last room in the enfilade was always the bedroom, and then people were allowed, depending on their status and their rank, their social rank, were allowed to to a certain room before the bedroom. So in a way, like we were interested to draw like this parallel between this kind of paleo technology that doesn't employ any like digital means, but it just uses space essentially, and a type of technology that also in a way uses space, but in a more removed way, which is the one of smart technologies.
Yeah, I have to say the enfilade for us is also actually a way to in a sense introduce almost a theatrical element within the installation. In fact, what we actually don't really see very well from these pictures is the way the space is inserted within the art fair. So it's a space which actually crosses one of the main thoroughfares from going from one tent to another, and it appears somehow in the form of almost a hallucination. So it's very difficult to gauge the depth of it and the extent to which the rooms repeat themselves. And this repetition of rooms is a theme which we've been working on since a couple of exhibitions. And I think we will see it later actually with the show P&I. In this case, what renders it, I find, interesting, at least as an aesthetic phenomenon, is this, let's say, the schizophrenic aspect and the uncanny aspect which it sort of evokes. In a sense, all the bedrooms are 12 square meters standard double bedrooms, which we can find all across UK, with a global display of color palettes, which in every, let's say, second children's bedroom one can find, with all the interior decoration tropes which every standard aspirational bourgeois home has, such as the skirting, the coving, and so forth. But at the same time, this, let's say, this incredibly staged, let's say, positioning and incredibly repetitive sequencing gives an almost, let's say, yes, I would say, uncanny understanding of it. And let's say, as part of the exhibition, we have a sublet program, and let's say subletting is something we've been thinking about a lot in relation to our exhibitions, and we see it as a form of, let's say, as a way of somehow allowing for the exhibition to gain a certain life, and for context to appropriate the exhibition as much as the exhibition appropriates its contexts. And so in this case, for example, I guess the images on the screen refer to two particular sublets which we have been doing. One which takes the form of a series of beauty treatments, such as gold masks, black masks, Reiki massages, and so forth, which in a sense once more bring us back to all the system of wellness, let's say, facilities which more and more encroach into places of work and labor, and how wellness itself is becoming, let's say, the ultimate, if you want, bastion of biopolitics. And on the other hand, we will have a listening party of Selena Gomez's last album, Revival, which will take place tomorrow at 5 o'clock, where an artist, let's say, will...
Emily Jones is hosting a listening party to the new Selena Gomez album.
Which is basically a listening only and no speaking, 1 hour and a half listening performance. And let's say, to a certain extent, this refers back to the embroidery we have on the duvets, and is very basic, if you want, but yet again, highly, let's say, recognizable jargon of...
I think the subletting idea came from another show that we did in Peckham, because, I mean, it was a very problematic context in a way, because it was inside this car park in Peckham, which every year hosts a public program and like public art installations. And because, you know, there was... let's say it has that project has a problematic role in the, let's say, process of gentrification of the area. We wanted to introduce subletting as, you know, something that has an actual role in the gentrification of the area, and like kind of take it both metaphorically and literally. So like we gave literally the body of our sculptures to other artists to intervene on, and so in this case it was more in the form of a performance. I just wanted to run through quickly this other exhibition.
I think it's great they're pixelated because they're supposed to be super high-res renders.
Yeah, it's kind of
ironic.
Like a good kind of ironic
because this piece is actually, like, the whole point of this is that the image starts taking more of an architecture. It starts becoming an architectural object or a sculpture, and rather than taking a pixel, it also starts taking square meters as a kind of presence in the world. So somehow this pixelation works in our favor, I guess, to talk about them.
These are all images that we call portraits, and they're all images that we kind of let's say rework existing images of interiors from, let's say, the creative class or the creative elite in a way. And so we take these images of interiors of like Site Wombly's house or Alex Katz's house, or in the past also like fashion design Tom Ford's, or like and so on and so forth, as a form of portraiture, but also as to, let's say, highlight the relation. Let's say the content of these images is in a way like like how an interior is in a way showing an intimate image of the inhabitant, and how this image it's used to, let's say, commodify, like the intimacy in a way commodified to make the home marketable in a way. But also, I mean, this series started also because we started looking into the role of artists in gentrification, and now artists are very much implicated, if not directly, at least into creating, let's say, forms of subjectivity that then are appropriated by corporate entities to, let's say, market new areas, new neighborhoods, or whatever. But yeah, I think we can probably stop here.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you.